In times of uncertainty, fear often drives people to extreme ideologies. Before the stock market crashed, banks allowed greater loans for investors. When the market crashed, bankers called in these loans which couldn't be paid back. People took their money out of the banks in a panic. Prices and incomes dropped, yet the debts remained the same. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act seriously reduced international trade. It also didn't help that the Federal Reserve didn't provide emergency lending to the large banks or buy government bonds in the open market. During the Great Depression, the dollar lost 20 to 50% of its value. Society struggled because many lost opportunities for personal advancement. Many turned to desertion or even death. The economic depression signified a personal depression within individuals. The Dust Bowl was caused by severe drought and bad farming techniques. Deep plowing of the topsoil of the Great Plains killed the natural grasses. Because of this, the soil dried, turned to dust, and blew away in dark clouds. This destroyed any hopes of ecological or agricultural prosperity in a time of such hardship. FDR was elected to the presidency in 1933. He had led a privileged life, traveling frequently to Europe and graduating from Harvard. He married his fifth cousin once removed, Eleanor. FDR is one of the most noted presidents because he served 4 terms and helped to lift the country back up after the stock market crash. The New Deal was a series of economic programs that FDR initiated between 1933 and 1936. The goal was to give relief to the people, reform businesses and financial practices, and recover the economy, which are known as the 3 Rs. The Conservative Coalition shut down many of the relief programs during the Second World War, but some are still in operation. During the 1930s, the average family incomes decreased by 40%, from $2,300 to $1,500. People struggled for survival and learned to make do with less. Economics dominated politics. The president at the time was Herbert Hoover, who believed that relief should be left to the private sector. By the end of the decade, the U.S. had gone from laissez-faire to a government which regulated the economy. Mussolini and Hitler were 2 dictators that rose to power during this time. Mussolini promised to end Italy's economic struggles and aimed to create a new empire through national prestige. Hitler was a charismatic man who appears to be the answer to all of Germany's problems. He rebuilt the German army and invaded much of Europe. There is no such thing as a good war. There are 2 types of wars. One that serves its purpose to defend one's country and stands just trial, and one that has no purpose or moral justification. The Treaty of Versailles forced Germany into bankruptcy and humiliation as a form of punishment for the First World War. The global depression starved many countries. Japan acted out by taking over Manchuria and attempted to do more. In response, America and Britain imposed an embargo on Japanese goods, which nearly killed the Japanese economy. Japan funneled all of its rage toward the U.S. On December 7, 1941, it attacked Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. This was an attempt to prevent the Pacific Fleet from influencing the war that Japan was planning to wage in Asia. At the same time Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, it had launched attacks against Americans in Southeast Asia. Japan ultimately wanted Australia, but Allied forces stopped them. America began to roll the Japanese back, which signaled the beginning of the end for Japan. It was time for America to become involved. As it had demonstrated in the First World War, America believed it best to stay out of conflicts until they were expressly called upon to join. This was the best time for a nation to go to war. The Germans fought out the Russians in 1942. England was being bombed and U-boats harassed American shipping. The Allies captured Sicily in 1943. The Normandy invasion began with D-Day and allowed the U.S. to liberate Paris. Germany launched a counteroffensive and General Patton led the Third Army to victory. In 1945, Russians invaded Germany from the east while the Allies moved in from the west. Germany was defeated and it surrendered. The U.S. began to impose federal income taxes to control the economy. The war stepped up wartime production and banished unemployment. Women joined the workforce to replace men who were drafted. FDR encouraged civilian efforts to support the war through rationing and victory gardens. The FEPC applied and guaranteed equality of employment rights for minorities and women. Many blacks migrated from the South to industrialized areas for jobs. Japanese people were largely discriminated against. They were either evacuated or interned in camps. The Holocaust was genocide of 6 million Jews during World War II as a plan of extermination executed by the Nazi regime. Other groups were also persecuted and killed. Air raids and battles left many regions in Europe, and especially Russia, completely devastated. Entire cities were wiped out and some have never recovered. The United Nations was created in order to ensure international security, human rights, and world peace. It was founded as a successor to the League of Nations in 1942. In 1947, the United Nations voted in favor of a partition plan that created the State of Israel. After Britain let go of its mandate over Palestine, war broke out between the Arabs and Jews. The Arab-Israeli War of 1948 established Israel as an independent state. The Cold War existed between the U.S. and Soviet Union between 1940s and 1990s. Throughout this time, rivalry was expressed through coalitions, propaganda, and competitive development. Even though they were allied against the Axis powers during World War II, the two states disagreed sharply both during and after the conflict. In times of uncertainty, fear often drives people to extreme ideologies. Panic and apprehension often propelled people to supreme ethics in the past and will continue to do so in the future.